Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, Friday, ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the weekend. It's storming in my area. There's supposed to be a, Cristobal is supposed to come straight up through the Gulf of Mexico over the weekend and actually maybe make landfall around New Orleans as a about 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. The bottom line for me is it's knocked me out of my fishing, so we're going to get a lot of rain. Be careful if you're in the path of that. We shall see. But we got a great show for you today. We're going to start with Bernie World. Bernie World is feuding. They're fussing and fighting, cat fighting. I don't know what they call the type of fighting. They're having Twitter wars amongst themselves, and it could be a bad sign for Joe Biden, and we'll talk about that. And then the Democrats, like the old mayor of Chicago said, they never let a crisis go to waste. Well, the Democrats are now preparing for a total police reform bill. They're going to push it through the House without any problem whatsoever. Of course, it may stall in the Senate, but they got to act now. They got a moral moment, as one of the congresswomen say in the story here, and we'll get to that in just a moment. And then we're going to update you on something that I predicted yesterday. I did a lot on this story because I do think it was a very interesting story. I am not surprised that Mr. Drew Brees has caved and apologized, much to the chagrin of many of us, including me and Billy Bob here. If you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, he's Billy Bob Bass. He kind of keeps me straight on the show here. Got a Twitter handle, by the way, at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But Brees caved. I kind of predicted it yesterday. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But we start out with Bernie World, man. There is trouble in paradise, brother. This is a political story. Staffers lash out in Bernie World meltdown. I don't know if I'd call it that, but they're saying that they are melting in Bernie World, buddy. Bernie World is tearing itself apart. And my first response when I read that is, what a shame. The Bernie World is coming to an end. Just when the real world might be, Bernie is going to lead the way. And just when the Democrats, think about it, I kind of feel sorry for old Bernie if you think about it. Just when the Democrats looked like at the beginning of this year were kind of getting behind old Bernie for the first time, man. They were ready to get behind and shove Bernie forward. I'm just not sure where they wanted to shove old Bernie, but he was delusional to start with. As election results across the country rolled in Tuesday, in case you didn't know it, there was primaries all across America, and Biden won and Trump won. And I saw a post that somebody made, do not hold me to this, you can verify, that said that Trump actually got more total votes in the series of primaries on Tuesday than Biden did, which if true, see, you can say anything if you use the Democrats, if true, is very interesting. But election results across the country rolled in on Tuesday evening. Current and former aides to Bernie Sanders abruptly laced into each other on social media. Does that really count? If it's a Twitter fight, is it really a fight? Because where I come from, if you lanced out at somebody, it meant you took a swing at them. I guess you can take a swing on Twitter. I've never really done it that way. But trading accusations of being tone deaf, not giving an S about the base, and even stealing infrastructure from the 2020 campaign. I think what they're talking about there is email list, and it'll make more sense in just a moment. The clashes made public tensions that had long simmered below the surface among different factions in Sanders' team during the primary. Did you know they were simmering below the surface? When I see Bernie, I don't think of simmering that much, really. But they also demonstrated how difficult it is for top Sanders lieutenants to control even their own former staffers, which could hammer efforts at party unity during the general election. In other words, it could be trouble if they don't come together for old creepy junk Joe Biden. The fact that some of these people, the Bernieites, are actually peeved about what's happening, I actually think is a positive thing. And I'm not even talking about the politics. At least it makes them human. I mean, because really, shouldn't they be peeved? They've literally been screwed twice in some cases without even a peck on the cheek, let alone a full kiss. And so I would be peeved if I were a Bernie supporter based on what I've seen so far. For progressives and ex-Sanders staffers worried about how to keep the movement alive, excuse me, I got to adjust something here just slightly. There we go. Live TV can be interesting sometimes. For progressives and ex-Sanders staffers worried about how to keep the movement alive after the Vermont senator dropped out of the primary, the feud set off a feud. Did they really know what a feud is? I guess it's like Family Feud. They kiss each other on the cheek. The feud set off a round of soul-searching since it came against a backdrop of nationwide civil unrest and protests against police brutality. So basically what they're saying, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, Rahm Emanuel, don't let a crisis go to waste. Well, some of the Bernie people are fearing that this crisis, the burning and the looting and the sadness and everything combined, is they're missing a chance at getting their message out even further. But here's the thing for you Bernieites. I want to talk to some of y'all for a while because I feel for you. I do. I actually have some friends, one in particular that is a strong Bernie supporter, and he's very troubled, and I get that. He's a progressive. He's pretty hardcore leftist, but we are friends. This is America after all. You don't have to have everybody agree on everything all the time. I mean, contrary to what it seems like in the media these days. But let me just tell you, Bernie bros, lean in and listen to this. Bernie, and I know this is going to piss you off and it may melt some of you snowflakes out there, but Bernie was always going to sell out. This is no surprise. It's nothing new. He sold out, for God's sakes, to Hillary Clinton, the complete opposite, in a sense, of Bernie Sanders. When I say that, Hillary, Bernie Sanders, put it this way, Bernie Sanders supporters. Bernie Sanders, by the way, is an establishment politician. He is. He hadn't had any job other than politics pretty much his whole life. So, and Hillary is the textbook insider swamp rat, okay? So the fact that Bernie actually sold out to her should tell you really all you needed to know going into 2020. Bernie, if he'll sell out to Hillary, man, he'll sell to the highest bidder. But Bernie is, in fact, and this is something I guess some of you snowflakes out there, some of you Bernieites could take solace on. One thing Bernie is, yeah, he's establishment, he's a sellout, but he's a true communist. I give him that, because a true communist leader is all about do what I say, don't look behind the curtain to see what I'm actually doing. And Bernie's textbook at that. Bernie, he bemoans capitalism, but he loves him some Benjamins, man. He absolutely is in love with the Benjamins. Said Jonathan Tassani, the author of The Essential Bernie Sanders and His Vision for America, The Essential Bernie Sanders. So Bernie is an essential, man. And national surrogate for Sanders in 2016. This is what he said. The left circular firing squad never rests and never misses a beat, squandering an opportunity to get its head out of its A, to actually organize people outside of the, and listen to this, outside of the cult. So he's admitting, that this thing with Bernie Sanders and much of the progressive movement is essentially a cult. He's saying that they have a hard time getting beyond that, man. So I tell you all the time, if you're new to the show, first of all, where you've been. Secondly, glad to have you. You can find us now if you're on the Facebook network you're obviously listening to. You can also check us out on John Martin Talks YouTube channel. Just check it out. We got all our shows archived there. Of course, America's Voice News Network. We're proud to be a growing part of it, and it is a growing network. You can see them on the Facebook like you're doing right now. Good morning. Howdy. How are you? You can also see them stream my show across various streaming services like Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download a free app on your iPhone or Android. We're now broadcast, believe it or not, on Dish Network channel 219. We are universal, and also Pluto Network. You might ought to check that network in general. I watch the Addams Family on it all the time, but some of us are sicker than others. But I've been saying all along, and if I say it, it bears repeating, that when it comes to these progressives, you don't have to guess where they are. Just take them at their word. When they tell you that they want to burn everything down, knock down the buildings, and have you riding a jackass like they are, the jackasses on Jackass's Party, take them at their word. When they tell you that that they're an organized cult, like this insider is telling you, take them at their word. That's what they are. When the mayor of Gainesville says that that Antifa is the peace-loving crowd, just take him at his word. He means every word of it, man. I just found it sad and head-shaking, back to the article here, that this kind of crossfire, and this is coming again from Mr. Jonathan Tassani, a insider, a surrogate for Bernie in 2016. He said, I just find it sad and head-shaking that this kind of crossfire is coming out now when the progressive movement has the opportunity to talk to millions. Translation to that, are we taking advantage of the burning of America? He's bemoaning the fact that he believes that the Bernieites, the progressive movement, is not taking full advantage of the situation that it is right now. Take them at their word. America is where they want it to be right now. They believe that you will suck up anything in this particular environment, and they might be right for quite a few of you. So much misinformation out there, it's unbelievable. The skirmishes began. David Serrata Sanders, former speechwriter, took a shot at the policy task force that Sanders and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden created. So Biden and Bernie are working together. I wonder how much you think Biden is paying Bernie to work with him, because Hillary, gave him a ton of money, private jets and everything else. I'm sure Biden is too. Joe Biden created this transition team, hopes of healing party rifts. Ex-campaign manager Frat Shakara and Amanala, I can't say that name, Major, I guess is how you say it. But this is the committee, I believe. Excuse me on that. There you go. Hey, did that shake you up? If that didn't shake you up, this probably will. That this committee is being led by none other than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, she's leading this committee, man. And by the way, I haven't heard a lot from her during all this. Maybe you have. I hadn't seen a lot from her. But she's got a part of her, has got to be kind of relishing in what's happening on the street. I'm not talking about the violence, but, if the burning up of cars and burning down buildings, it fits right in with the Green New Deal. Get rid of the cars, get rid of them skyscrapers and mom and pop shops while you're at it, and we can rebuild them in the vision of Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, and you can pedal your bicycle or ride your jackass when your car's burned out. So she's probably relishing certain aspects of what's happening. Now, I'm not saying, just for the record, I'm not saying that she is for the violence. For those of you organizations monitoring the show, or for algorithm, I don't want to be banned or what are they, deplatformed or whatever. I got the cookies and cupcakes ready for you, Al. If you wonder who I'm talking about old algorithm. That guy might be the most powerful dude on the planet. Sanders' former national political director have been in talks about the endeavor with top Biden advisor Anita Dunn. So this is where the Bernieites are breaking about this Anita Dunn. The Bernie bros, this lady Anita Dunn, is loathed by some progressives for previously consulting with disgraced Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein. I wonder what else she did with old Harvey. About New York Times investigation and Ron Klain. Serrata, so they're upset about the old school money, the old Hollywood money that comes from Weinstein. I bet they didn't have a problem with him till he got outed, so to speak. But Serrata tweeted, I don't know who needs to hear this, but many of us don't want to hear career beltway political operatives. They're talking about Weinstein, or this Anita Hill, actually, boasting. Is that her name again? Let me make sure. Anita Dunn, because Anita Hill is a different one. We haven't heard much from her lately. Said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but many of us don't want to hear career beltway political operatives boasting about the task force while this is going on right now. JFC, try to be a little less tone deaf. So he's talking about Harvey Weinstein and I guess the Me Too movement. But hey, this shows you that maybe some of these Bernie people aren't Democrats after all. Because the Democratic Party, from what I can see, and let me make it clear, because I've been pushed back some on Facebook by this. When I talk about the Democratic Party, I'm talking about the leadership of the party. I'm not talking about every rank and file Democrat out there, because I hope you take your party back or walk away and certainly don't support Joe Biden. But the Democrat Party doesn't care a hoot about the Me Too movement unless it fits their narrative. We've seen that with Joe Biden. Whether he's guilty or not is still a question. But one thing that has come out for sure, the Me Too movement means nothing. It means nothing because it is very apparent that it only means something if a Democrat is attacking a Republican. If Democrats are fighting amongst themselves, it ain't nobody's business. And if they're attacking the wannabe presumptive nominee, Joe Biden, well, that woman is absolutely not only not to be believed, but must be destroyed. So the Me Too movement has been exposed for what it actually is, political nonsense. So this thing, when he said that this person was tone deaf and working with Anita, talking about Anita Dunn, I got to get that Anita right. Got to get my Anitas right. Said that prompted Mike Kaska, Sanders' current spokesman, to make an explosive charge shortly before 11 p.m. All of this on Twitter, I'm thinking, about progressive newsletters Serrata currently runs. This is where the stealing of assets charge comes in. Serrata currently runs after managing a similar project on 2020 campaign. The publication that this guy runs offers a paid annual subscription option at a cost of $50, which is not that much, but it's still cash money, man. Money, money, money. And so Dejam always says D and then am, so you can figure it out. Koska tweeted, real change happens when you steal an email list from the campaign. I know this is a bit convoluted, but these names are tough. From a campaign and use it to create your own paid newsletters. Why can't anyone see that? Anyone subscribe if you can? So the one dude is accusing the other of profiting from the Bernie campaign data list. Keep in mind, you talk about Bernie being a Democrat. Bernie never gave up all the data he got from 2016. He never gave that data to the DNC. Do you know that? He never did. He's never been a team player. Bernie is for Bernie. Let's face it. He really is. He's a perfect little communist. Do what I say, forget what I do. But Bernie must be laughing all the way to the bank, man. They're arguing about making money and they're talking about $50 subscriptions while he's walking away with millions. Bernie, think about this. Bernie has never held a job outside of being elected mayor, congressman, and now U.S. senator. And yet he is worth millions, have 5 houses across the country, flies around in private jets. But he's a man of the common, working, struggling people. I mean, give me a break. Bernie is laughing all the way to the bank about y'all arguing about little peanuts and $50 a month or a year. Of course, I wish I was getting $50 a year, a month, so that's another story. Anyway, I don't want to be bitter. The sudden remarks exposed the deep frustration among senior Sanders staffers about some ex-aides second-guessing about the campaign's mistakes. Mistakes? The campaign made mistakes. Bernie is right where he wants to be. I hate to break this news to you Bernieites out there, you snowflakes, but Bernie Sanders is right where he expected to be. He's in the money. I am more convinced than ever, and I'm sure this is controversial to people across the board, but I am thoroughly convinced, certainly more than ever, that Bernie Sanders never, ever wanted nor expected to be president. He wanted that retirement fund, man. If you go back and look at the 2016 campaign, he didn't take Hillary on until it was way too late, and then he did it. He never took the gloves off. And with Joe Biden, he literally knelt and conceded the election to Joe Biden, who everybody in the inside knows that he is the least qualified person at this moment in time to be president. They know that. Biden is basically a tool of the establishment. And there are some Republicans probably hoping he will win as well because of that fact. Biden is the consummate tool. He always has been an inside the beltway guy, period. And now that he's senile, they can manipulate. He's a puppet for the mainstream political of both parties, but certainly the Democrats. And Bernie caved to this guy. And think about that last debate they had. Go back and watch that last debate that was on CNN. Bernie had one last shot to take Biden down, and Biden would have been easy pickings because he cannot answer any kind of tough question, and he gets angry and falls apart. And Bernie treated him like he was his grandfather in the nursing home, really just with kid gloves. It's unbelievable. So Bernie, I believe, never, ever actually wanted to be president. He just wanted to make money. Like I say, perfect communist leader. Do what I say, forget what I do. Along with Koska, Shakir hit back. As I say, these names jump around. Tuesday at former Sanders aides Winnie Wong. I don't know where they get these names from. I didn't know if that was a man or a woman, but Winnie Wong apparently is a guy who has been publicly bashing him and senior advisors Jeff Weaver for weeks over their handling of the primary and post-campaign moves. Wong called Shakir and Weaver nerds. Boy, that's a cut, right? That's the fights they have are not quite like the fights I grew up with. They don't give Wong said they don't give a S, so they love to cuss. So I wonder how they throw these curse words out, but they're on Twitter. I wonder if they ever do that, because where I come from, let me just tell you, and I'm not advocating this, we didn't do a whole lot of shouting back and forth at each other because if you called somebody out, something happened. But they said they don't give a S about the base. They give a S about their political careers, and that's probably true inside the Beltway. Naming the enemy is a must, and I just did it. Oh, man, woo, child, it is getting hot in here, man. They are really getting on Twitter, man. Can't you feel the steam? And I guess they're scratching at their computer screen. Yeah, I don't know, man. This thing could get crazy. They all kind of sound like a episode of RuPaul or something, man, to me. But Shakir responded, I hate engaging, but this is ridiculous. Trump's gassing protesters, but I'm the real enemy. For what? First of all, he didn't, by the way. Trying with every fiber of my being to get Bernie elected, but coming in second. So they did the best they could with what they had, and they came in second. Old Bernie is second place guy. That's where the money's at, man. Wake up. Well, get woke, Bernieites. And then trying to get the first place finisher to move in a progressive direction and defeat Donald Trump, which is the only thing the campaign is about. This campaign is not about Joe Biden. I've been telling you that for a while. If it's about Joe Biden, it's already over. It's about Trump derangement syndrome and beating Donald Trump. If you want to know this, all you got to do is challenge anybody who's supporting Joe Biden right now. Challenge them in any way, and they will not defend Joe Biden at all. They will just come at you with anti-Trump rhetoric, hatred, TDS. That's all they got. So this election is ultimately up to that. But Biden, you don't have to worry about Biden turning to the left and going towards Bernie. He'll go wherever they want him to do. Just give him a cookie and say, come on in here, my little puppy dog. Go wherever they want to, man. But this article then goes on. We're not going to get into it. It goes on, if you're interested in it, it goes on in depth to describe all the various squabbles going on in the Bernie campaign and the politics behind it and everything else. I just found it interesting that the Bernie camp is, as they say, the title in Politico of all places, that they're melting down. If true, if that organization falls apart and can't unify behind Biden, because we already know by all the polling, all the articles now saying Trump has no shot whatsoever. It's just 50 stories when I was looking at this on how Trump has no chance in hell to win. Of course, that is, if Bernie bros melt down and don't go with Biden, then I think Mr. Trump wins. Bottom line, Bernie is the establishment guy. I keep telling you this, but it's a fact. I've said this story before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. All you got to do is look at Ocasio-Cortez. Ocasio-Cortez, and I'm not, some people say I'm like promoting her. I'm not. I'm simply telling you that I admire her work ethic politically as a political junkie. She ran one heck of a campaign, literally wore the soles of her shoes off, and beat a 26-year incumbent. That is extremely difficult to do. So from a purely political sense, I respect that. I don't agree with anything she says, and I think she's a lot smarter than we give her credit for, but that's another story. But Bernie did not support Ocasio-Cortez's run. He didn't get on board with her until after she beat Crowley, the incumbent, who Bernie endorsed. So Bernie was opposed to Ocasio-Cortez. He jumped on her bandwagon when it was to his benefit, like any good little communist leader would do. But you guys, you people that supported Bernie, I hate to tell you this, but you were sold out before you even really got started. And Biden, as I tell you, Biden is simply a puppet of the D.C. establishment. He is, even beyond the senility, he is, if Biden were 100%, he would still be 100% puppet of the establishment. That is why they got behind him. The real revolution, if you're a Bernie bro out there, a Bernie out, if you really and truly want to get on something that is revolutionary, it's ongoing. It's called the Trump train. Jump on board, because that's the only shot you have at actually reforming anything. Because if Biden wins, it's going to be status quo, refill the swamp, and it's going to stink to high heaven, man. So get on board. Whoop, whoop, the Trump train, you Bernie bros. That's what you need to do. All right, we're going to move along. Let me check my time. Doing pretty good. Bumping into things here, I guess. Bumping grind. Anyway, this is a story from the AP, and it doesn't surprise me. They hadn't even put the young man, Mr. Floyd, in his grave yet, although they were doing it yesterday afternoon, I suppose, memorial. I don't know about the actual burial or any of that, and I don't mean to besmirch him. It was tragic what happened to him. But the Democrats are not going to let any situation pass them by without trying to push their agenda. So this is true to form here. AP story. Democrats prepare police reform bills after Floyd's death. Congressional Democrats, powered by the Congressional Black Caucus, are preparing a sweeping package of police reforms as pressure builds on the federal government to respond to the death of George Floyd and others in law enforcement interactions. Well, before I go on, I've asked this yesterday, and please respond to this. I would like to know, I'm very serious about this. Respond on whatever Facebook page you're on. I will get back to you if you've been watching any length of time, you know I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But let me just ask you this. Name me one new policy that if implemented would have prevented what happened in Minneapolis. Would have prevented that white police officer and the 3 onlookers from putting that guy to death right there, putting it in. What law? Because everything they did was already illegal, I hate to tell you. So what law, what policy, what oversight board would have prevented that from happening? I'm still waiting. I haven't had anyone take me up on that challenge. With the urgency, and that's not to condone what happened. I'm simply saying that you can reform all you want. And I'm not even saying there shouldn't be some reform. But if you're thinking there's some magic pill out there that can be passed, or some magic bill that will turn around and stop what happened the other day, I don't see it. You can't legislate what's in a man's heart. I keep telling you that. With the urgency of mass protests outside their doors, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working furiously to draft what could become one of the most ambitious efforts in years to oversee the way law enforcement works. So lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working furiously. Nothing bad could happen there. I mean, they're not in a very good practice of working all the time. They've been home all during this coronavirus thing, right? Senators Cory Booker, Spartacus himself, of New Jersey, and Kamala Harris of California, both former presidential candidates that didn't even make it to the first vote, are expected to announce a package in coming days with a House bill coming soon. So I'm wondering what they're going to call their bill. So you got Cory Booker and Kamala Harris promoting this bill. I guess they could call the Booker and Hooker bill. I mean, because we know that Booker is Spartacus himself and all that in a bag of chips. And, of course, Kamala Harris, man, she made her way to fame on the couch cushions of Willie Brown in San Francisco. But let me just, on a serious note, have you ever been to Newark, New Jersey? Have you? I mean, I've been there many times. It's been a while. But I guarantee you it's gotten worse since Booker was mayor there. Newark, New Jersey, and I say this because I know there's people up there suffering. There's probably a lot of good people in Newark, New Jersey. But I'm telling you right now, they don't have to worry about a curfew there for average citizens because they've been hiding from the thugs on the streets there for a long time. I never forget the first time I went to Newark back in the 80s when I was working up there in New York. There were like burned out vehicles just lined up like they were getting ready to put them on a train. It was just on every street, man. That's Cory Booker's town. And San Francisco, where Kamala Harris is from, my God, man, San Francisco used to be the jewel of not only California, but one of the greatest cities on the planet. But it's gone under leadership like Kamala Harris, from the jewel to the stool. You don't need a map to get around Fisherman's Wharf. You need a poop map to make sure you don't step in crap full of needles, pile of crap full of needles like some kind of surprise birthday party, man. But these two people are going to straighten everything out when they can't even straighten out where they were elected, man. Both the Senate and House efforts are expected to include changes to police accountability laws, such as revising immunity provisions. A lot of that, they're going to have to fight unions, by the way, and creating a database of police use of force incidents. Revamp. There's already a big data. I mean, the Washington Post has been keeping track of this pretty well. Nobody wants to talk about it because the statistics that even the Washington Post has show that the narrative on the street is total bogus, man. And that is not to take away from the man that was tragically killed, and those people need to fry, in my opinion. Revamped training requirements are planned too. What training could possibly have prevented? So are you telling me that there's a training program that would have changed the heart of that police officer? You can't legislate what's in a person's heart. If you're evil, you're evil. You might could redeem it, but it's above all of our pay grades to do that. But it says requirements are planned. Two among them ban the use of chokeholds, which I understand that. I'm not necessarily for that. But I can tell you, when you're in a fight, my dad used to say the only fair fight, son, is one you win. And so cops are fighting for their lives out there in some cases like this. I'm not talking about this particular case, but the vast majority of the times they have to take down a suspect, their life is on the line, man. But of course, Joe Biden, the presidential nominee, has endorsed such a ban. Of course he has. Joe, man, he's defended all this. The police have even come out and said, "What happened, Joe? You used to be for us, and now you're against us." But Joe Biden is just going whichever way the wind blows, man. He really has no spine, no backbone. If he ever did, it's gone now. So I'll tell you, Joe, why don't you jump on board the new slogan that's out there? Defund the police. Defund the police. And if you think that that is just idle threats out there, look what's happening in California. You had Mayor Garcetti, I think. He actually knelt down in front of these people. Gavin Newsom, who you see right there, the governor, he is proposing a cut across the board to police departments of upwards of like $200 million, and that money be redirected to revitalizing black or neighborhoods of color. But I'm not saying that that shouldn't be done as far as revitalizing, but can you imagine, have you ever heard, well, the police department is overfunded? I mean, I can't imagine. That's scary to think of, man. But, I don't know. It's just crazy what's happening out here. You need to get truly woke. And I can tell you, trust me on this, you want to talk about racism, and this may be racism. If they cut funding for police across the board, do you think that means they're going to patrol Hollywood less? Really? Beverly Hills less? Or is it maybe going to be Compton that they patrol less? I'm just saying, wake up and smell the coffee. Representative Karen Bass, Democrat of California, the chairwoman of the CBC, said, "We have a moral moment in our country." Yeah, okay, moral moment. Maybe, but I don't see a whole lot of morals on the streets right now. I really don't. So you have an opportunity, I'll grant you that, and you have, you have a tragedy that you want to take advantage of, but I don't know that it's a moral moment. And when morals and Democrats, their leadership, I don't know. The political stakes, and politicians in general, really, the political stakes of any police reform effort are high, you think, amplified in an election year by President Donald Trump's law and order stance. What other stance is there to take? Including his threats to call in the U.S. military to clamp down on protesters. I keep reading this, and one thing I'm going to be consistent about, I'm not politically correct. You're tuned into the wrong show. I'm going to call it every time. This statement, the military to clamp down on protesters, is a lie. President Trump never said that. I got in an argument with one of my family members who I dearly loved earlier today. President Trump, because she said President Trump called all the protesters thugs. That's a lie. He did not say that. He called the people that are pillaging, burning, stormtrooping, running over cops, burning down precincts, killing cops, even black cops. He called them thugs and talked about bringing out the military to stop that. Not peaceful protest. It is quite simply a lie, and I am never going to let that stand. Pelosi, she's involved in this, of course. Pelosi said on MSNBC, the House is expected to vote by month's end, will be intense and proactive. So she's going to be proactive. So I thought I'd look up the word proactive to see how it fits here. because words matter. I come from a long line of school teachers. One thing you know about this show, word, language matter. The definition of proactive, of a person or policy or action creating or controlling a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding to it after it happened. You know, so Nancy Pelosi, let me just give you a couple statistics here. Miss Pelosi, Speaker of the House, she has been in Congress in the same seat representing San Francisco, you poor suckers out there, for 31 years. 31 years. Joe Biden, who was, signed off on all this, became Vice President of the United States after spending 36 years as a U.S. Senator. And you add the 8 years as VP, you got 44. So let me do the math on this. 31 plus 44 is something like what? 75 years? But now they're going to be proactive. They hadn't done diddly squat for Black America and to relieve the problems. I mean, Barack Obama, what did he do for Black America? I'm going to tell you right now, and this pisses a lot of people off. Donald Trump has done more for Black America. I'm just going to say it flat out. He's done more for Black America in the last 3.5 years than all the rest of these yahoos, including President Obama, has ever done in all the decades they've been up there. It's just a fact. It's my opinionated fact, but it's a fact, man. Anyway, he's done more. Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said the chamber would take a look at issues, but he has not endorsed any particular legislation. Lindsey Graham, always got something to say, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, tweeted that his panel will conduct a hearing to shine a bright light on the problems associated with Mr. Floyd's death with the goal of finding a better way forward for our nation. I ask this again, and please understand, I am extremely disturbed by what happened in Minneapolis. I feel for that family. It never should have happened. It's devastating. Look what it's done to our country. There's no excuse. I hope these cops are being prosecuted. They've upped the charges. What else do you want them to do? But I ask again, what policy, what law that we don't already have on the books could be implemented that would have prevented that evil deed that the dude did in Minneapolis? I don't come up with one. Please let me know, man. Let me check the time. We got a little bit of time left. And here's it says, but much like efforts, they talk about Republicans here, of course, to stem gun violence after mass shootings, the political momentum for changes to policing procedures could ebb as the protests and images of those who have died fade from the public view. That could be true. For example, I love how they put more fire in this. For example, a long sought federal anti-lynching bill has languished in Congress. Let me see these things like hate crimes. They make no sense to me, because if you murder somebody, I'm assuming you didn't like them too much. I mean, what are you going to do? Fry the guy twice? I mean, they're letting people out of jail on a daily basis. I mean, they got a turnover. So what is the punishment here? What do they want? So talking about the anti-lynching, I don't get it. Name me one place in these United States of America where lynching is legal right now, where you can't get in Florida, you get the death penalty for something like that. What more can you do? Like kill them twice? I don't know. Black America, let me just tell you, if you don't understand this, and you may say, well, what are you doing as an old white dude talking about? Well, there's a lot of things I know and a lot of things I don't know, and sometimes I can observe. But let me tell you something I'm pretty confident of. Black America, you're being played. I'm not necessarily saying that you need to be for Donald Trump, but at least wake up and realize you're being played. You're being played by these Democrats. You're being played by Joe Biden. He don't even know who he is. He's going whichever way the wind blows. You're being played. I'm not even necessarily giving you solutions, but I can tell you that Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and the rest of the Democrats who have been up there since they got off the ark have no solutions. If they did, they would already implement them. Or is your life better in Black America in other words, the problems we have now, given the fact that, Nancy and Joe have been up there for like 80 dadgum years, man? I mean, wake the heck up. Let me see. I'm just about out of time, but I want to read a couple of other things here just to give you an example of what some of these Democrats are proposing. Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat from Hawaii, is considering an upcoming defense bill provision that would ban the transfer of military equipment, including armor and tanks, to police and sheriff's departments. On the surface, that sounds pretty cool. But when you look at what's actually happening on the street, for God's sakes, they're blowing up ATMs with dynamite right now. I mean, so, you want the cops to be less armed than the hooligans that are blowing up ATMs with dynamite? How many people could be killed by that, man? And not to mention that they're burning down police headquarters, running over cops with SUVs, shooting black police officers on live stream Facebook, for God's sakes, and burning churches. No one, they want to talk about Donald Trump with a photo op, but they don't want to talk about the fact that he went over there because they burned a dadgum church. I mean, I would be a lot happier if you want to, or maybe not as pissed off, I don't know about happier, if you'd spend half the time talking about the burning of the church as you have Donald Trump standing in front of it, man. It's just unbelievable. But they're also talking about doing a commission on black youth and everything else. The best thing they could do is revamp the Boy Scouts, man, and put young kids in there. But no, they're opposed to that too, man. So let me just tell you, the thing that terrifies me about these reforms is, I said something about this yesterday and I got a lot of comments on Facebook. I'm concerned about this. Why would anybody right now want to be a policeman? Can you imagine if your kid came up to you and says, I'm thinking about being a policeman? You got to admit, first of all, you'd probably be, if you're like me, you'd be proud that they're willing to serve. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you'd be thinking, I don't know if this is a good decision based on what I'm seeing in the streets. And if that actually comes to pass, buddy, you better take President Obama's advice and cling to your Bibles and your guns, because you're going to need them. All right, we got a few minutes left. I want to update you on a story that is no surprise to me. We talked about it yesterday. You can check out our podcast, go to our YouTube channel, all the different ways I told you earlier. But this is from USA Today Sports. Opinion: Drew Brees needs to do more than apologize for comments on the anthem protest. So Drew Brees, if you hadn't followed this story, basically on Wednesday came out. He was asked a very specific question about the upcoming NFL season and what he thought if they started kneeling for the anthem and the flag. And he said, I'm not for anything that disrespects the American flag. He's not. And he talked about how his grandparents served in World War II, and he's not. And I stood up for what he said, but he was taken to task. He jumped in the frying pan. He was asked, in fairness, a very specific question. And of course, now he's had to retract it to a certain extent. But the thing my wife is always saying, don't ever apologize, because they're never going to forgive you and they're just going to double down. Crafting an apology, back to this article quickly. Crafting an apology and wading through Google to find the exact right photo to accompany it, empathetic, inspiring, hopeful, was the easy part. Talking about what Drew Brees did. And I told you, don't apologize. But Drew Brees needs to prove there is substance to his mea culpa, that his wasn't yet another word salad from someone who doesn't get it and just wants all this to go away. Drew Brees does not need to prove anything. Drew Brees has done more for people of color, specifically in New Orleans, with their own mayor called the Chocolate City. Remember, Drew Brees has done more for the city of New Orleans and the people of Louisiana than all the rest of his detractors combined. I feel strong in saying that. The man literally brought New Orleans up from the ashes, man. I don't think anyone could do it any better than him. He has nothing to prove whatsoever. And then we'll kind of close with this. It says here, those words, let me read the words he said. New Orleans Saints quarterback posted an apology on Instagram on Thursday morning for a firestorm he set off by mischaracterizing the protests of Colin Kaepernick and other NFL players as disrespecting the flag. Mischaracterizing. He didn't mischaracterize. He said exactly what it is. Disrespecting the flag. And let me read this part right here and we'll close the show. This is from the writer herself right here. She said, aside from being utterly tone deaf when the country is roiling with anger over George Floyd's death, Brees essentially told his teammates that a flag, now this is the writer saying this, that a flag, an inanimate object meant to be a symbol of freedom and ideals, matters more than their humanity. Read your own words, ma'am. You just said that the flag was meant to be a symbol of our freedoms and ideals. So anything that disrespects that is in fact disrespecting our freedom and of our ideals. So he apologized. I understand why he had to do it. I'm not surprised. But next they'll be wanting him to kneel. Let me tell you, this is as it has always been. If our country is to be saved, it will not be saved by Drew Brees and all that. It won't be. It will be saved by the American people who rise up and pick up the flag when it falls and keep marching forward. Ordinary Americans are what have made this country great, inspired by great leaders over time. But the Minutemen, just ordinary Americans that the Second Amendment talks about and everything like that, that is our first, best, and perhaps only hope defending the Constitution. I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. We all pray for the nation. Have a great weekend, but above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.